Hey guys, what's up, how's it going? My name is Rob and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we're going to be doing a brand new series, which is we're going to be reviewing different Blossom portfolios. So if you guys remember, in my previous video, I did a mention that I was going to actually be looking at reviewing members of the community's their portfolios. I did a post on Blossom, asked the community and everybody who was a user on Blossom if they would like the idea of me going through and doing some quick reviews of their portfolios. And I actually got a lot of support for this. A lot of you guys showed that you were interested in this, so I thought it would be a cool way to do some content as well as promote Blossom. And I think it'd be very beneficial for everybody because it lets me to help you guys out. And I think a lot of people would kind of have some fun with this. So a lot of things I probably want to do in the future to change things. For one, for example, when I do the post in the future, I'm definitely going to want to add things like what are your investing goals, your age, how long have you been investing, what are you looking to do inside your portfolio to gather some more personal information. That's definitely something I want to do in the future because it's hard to kind of review somebody's portfolio and see if it's aligned with what they want to do if you don't really know what they want to do, kind of thing. So that's something that was a complication. We might have to also focus on different formats. A lot of this stuff is still in the works. And by the way, guys, if there's anything you guys want me to cover or to kind of add inside these videos, if you guys want some constructive criticism, let me know, because I kind of just doing this off the top of my head and we're just kind of having some fun with this. So a lot of it's going to change. A lot of it's just kind of I just kind of threw together really quickly, but I do want to kind of start doing these on a regular basis, and I think it'd be pretty cool. So anyways, leave a comment on what you guys think you want to see me add or whatever when it comes to these portfolio reviews, but I'm just going to kind of wing them and go through them really quickly here. So the first one going to be today, we're going to do one portfolio review in today's video, and then maybe in the future we could do longer ones, we could do shorter ones, just up to you guys. So definitely let me know. And last but not least, if you guys want to sign up for Blossom, you guys can support the channel by using my link in the description of this video. If you guys sign up for Blossom, you guys can create an account, you can post your portfolio, you can see everybody's portfolio, as well as see my own portfolio on Blossom as well. So definitely check that out if you're not already signed up on Blossom. Alright guys, so we're going to be jumping into Bradley's portfolio today on Blossom. He's pretty active in the community. You guys might have seen him before. We're going to click on his name here. We're going to jump inside his portfolio, and I'll give you guys a quick little rundown on Blossom so you guys can see. Once again, if you guys want to sign up for Blossom, check out the link in the description of this video if you guys want to support the channel. Anyways, here's Bradley's portfolio. I'm going to do a quick little rundown here of the portfolio pie and show you guys the individual stocks, and then we're going to take all this information, we're going to put it into a portfolio visualizer so we can look at it a little bit better, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts and kind of talk about kind of what he's trying to do with his portfolio here. So as you guys can see, this is a pretty spread out portfolio, spread mostly of individual stocks, lots of individual stocks, some pretty common ones here as well as there's a few ETFs as we go kind of a little bit forward down here. And again, we'll talk about this throughout the video, but a nice spread between a bunch of different stocks. We'll talk about I'm not going to talk too much about the stocks individually, but we'll talk about the different sectors, if they're Canadian, US stocks, and kind of look at the growth or the dividend and that kind of stuff. So anyways, here's the portfolio. Let's take some information and we'll jump inside the PC and I'll give you guys a further rundown. So the first thing I want to talk about really quickly inside Bradley's portfolio, which I do like, by the way, we're going to talk about the individual stocks here versus buying ETFs. Now, Bradley, when it comes to buying individual stocks, typically it would be more reserved for experienced investors. And I myself kind of recommend, if you're a beginner, start with ETFs, make that the bulk of your portfolio. And then as you get comfortable, if you want to, and if you want to spend the time, you can do more individual stock picking. Now, and I myself am a big ETF guy, and I do small individual stock picking. Now, Bradley has a portfolio that's very, very much individual stocks. Now, there are a few ETFs. We have VFE here, the S&P 500, which is your classic US growth-based fund. So he's got a small holding percentage of that. And then if we go back inside here, we have XEI, which I think is the Canadian the high dividend yield index. So this is a pays dividend income. Just take a quick peek at the holdings, and this is a lot of your traditional Canadian stocks. So we have like Suncor, CNQ, Enbridge, Royal Bank of Canada. So pretty basic dividend ETF, so to speak. So a nice mixture. And that's the other thing we're going to talk about later on as we go through the portfolio. This is a pretty good mixture portfolio. The only thing I'm going to note here really quickly is that it's important to look at the allocations, right? Like we want to see how much of each holding is. And these ETFs are actually pretty small holdings. They're like maybe represent about 10 to 11% of the portfolio. One other thing I want to note is that there was a few stocks I wasn't actually able to put in here. So I wasn't able to put cash and I wasn't able to put BAM because for some reason, I guess with the portfolio visualizer, and I'm going to try and find a better tool to do this in the future, it won't record the the stocks if they have less than like 1 year history or something like that. For whatever reason, it wouldn't let me put in there. So I put AAA, which is this first, whatever the heck this is. I just put a placeholder. So I think it was like split between the two. They had 4% in cash and 4% in BAM. BAM, that's the ticker for that one. So just in case you guys know, this was just a placeholder. So yeah, that's gonna look kind of stupid and dumb, but I can think it wouldn't let me actually post the portfolio unless I filled up the extra space to make it equal 100. So just so you guys know. But going on the topic of allocation, we have the nice thing I do like to see about this portfolio, even though we have a lower ETFs, and that's perfectly fine, is that he's spreading it across with all the different stocks, right? So Lightspeed is going to be the #1 stock. We have Magna International. Some of these I know, some of them I don't, like ATD, you know, I'm a big fan of. TD, I'm a big fan of. CN, I'm a big fan of. You know, obviously VFB and all these Algonquin Power and Utilities, Royal Bank of Canada. These are all pretty good standard stocks. Like there's nothing too crazy. There's a few little different ones here and there that you might not know of. Going towards the end, we do have some REITs as well, right? And then we have some bonds. I guess you could say we have the bond ETF and some other things here too. But they're pretty small holdings, like, you know, like maybe 1 or 2%. So maybe Bradley's like working on building up those positions over time. And then we have Starbucks at the bottom, which is 0.5. So again, he's probably, I would imagine, building these up over time. And like I said, in the future, it would be nice to kind of get more people's goals and whatnot. And that's something we're definitely going to do next time, is I'm going to ask you guys for some goals and some just a little bit more information so I can kind of put together. But we're just going to be focusing on dissecting the portfolio and kind of focusing on what type of investor this portfolio would kind of help to benefit from. So obviously by looking at Bradley's individual stocks and his holdings, we can kind of get a sense of an idea that he has a mixture of a growth/dividend portfolio. You know, he has some growth stocks, he has some growth ETFs, as well as some pretty good quality dividend stocks. So he definitely has like that traditional dividend and growth based portfolio, kind of very similar to my portfolio actually. A lot of growth stocks with a good mix of dividend stocks as well. The only thing he's really missing is he doesn't have the covered calls or the high dividend yield ETFs. Instead, he has like more of the traditional stocks that might be like that, like Enbridge and stuff like that, but mostly focused on, you know, like the banks and, you know, those conservative dividend growth based Canadian companies. So that's super cool, super nice to see, but a very traditional, well thought out conservative portfolio. The other thing I want to mention really quickly that I've noticed is Bradley also has a pretty strong focus on Canadian stocks. The top big chunk of his portfolio is focused like pretty much all on Canadian stocks, with a little bit into ETF, US ETFs, and then going towards the bottom there's a few different things. But like the big chunk of this portfolio is focused in the Canadian markets. And again, this is up to personal preference. I'm not too sure what Bradley wants to do with that, if he wants to expand some of his holdings, but I would recommend maybe looking at some like international funds in the future potentially. I actually don't hold international funds yet. It's something I don't really want to have a part of my portfolio just yet, but maybe in the future I will. So I'm kind of looking at that maybe, you know, long term. The other thing Bradley might want to take a peek at is looking at diversifying more into U.S. funds. And again, this is a personal thing. I have a big chunk of my portfolio in the U.S. markets, but that's just what I like to do. But again, it's not really criticism or anything like that, but it is something to consider if you are kind of building a portfolio. You might want to add some more diversification. Now, again, at the end of the day, I'm not too sure what Bradley's goals are, but you know, it's still a solid portfolio regardless. And again, it's going to depend on kind of what your account types are and kind of what types of stocks you want to invest into. But Bradley's portfolio is very, very much focused on the Canadian markets. Now, when it comes to individual holdings, it can be a little bit tricky when you have a lot of different stocks. Now, Bradley's kind of sitting on, I guess, the higher side, but it's not too high. Most people recommend, and I would probably recommend, somewhere around 10 to 20 holdings, give or take. 20 kind of being a little bit on the higher side, but again, perfectly fine. And honestly, you can have as many holdings as you want. It just comes down to like how can you manage them, and it's up to you to decide. You know, if you want to manage like a 50 stock portfolio, it's up to you guys. But I would probably recommend, you know, you start off small and you slowly work it over time. So Bradley does have like that higher count, but again, because he has individual stocks as the biggest holdings, it makes sense to kind of have a higher stock count. Like if you had an index or something like that as a higher percentage, like maybe 50% of your portfolio or 40%, you could probably have less individual stocks, right? Because you'd have more diversification in ETFs. But when you have a lot of individual stocks like these ones, especially as the biggest holdings, you kind of want to spread out that risk, right? By having lots of different individual stocks. So I just kind of want to point that out. He does hold 20 stocks, which is on the higher side, but it does make sense for his portfolio given his allocations and whatnot. Now, one thing I want to talk about really quickly here to help some people understand is kind of look at some of the individual holdings that he has, especially some of the higher ones, and just kind of understand some of the risks and rewards that can come with individual stock picking. So traditionally when we buy ETFs, you know, you buy like VFE or something like that, the markets typically go up over time. And I'll bring this up really quickly. Let's go VFE stock, right? Like we have the S&P 500. If If we go to the max, we can see that this growth portfolio, because you're buying the index, right, has a pretty strong history of growth over time. Like, you can't argue, it's been pretty solid, and it's been, I mean, this is only the past like 10, 12-ish years or something like that, 10 years, I guess, or so, give or take. And it's been consistently growing, right? But that's because you're buying into the overall market, and the overall market grows over time. Now, when you buy individual stocks, it gets a little bit tricky because some stocks grow, with the market, some of them don't, and some outperform and some don't outperform. So when we look at some of the highest holdings here, and I'm not kind of picking them, and again, I'm not assessing these stocks. It's up to every person to do their due diligence and understand and decide for themselves if they want to invest in these stocks. I can't really say any of these stocks are good or bad investments. I'm just helping people to understand the risk of individual stock picking, and it's up to all you guys to kind of make the decisions for yourself. So the first case I'm going to cover really quickly is obviously going to be AQN, because that's probably a very relevant one right now. So if you look at the all-time return of AQN, it's obviously grown quite a bit. But with some of these growth stocks are having a large percentage of a stock that's an individual holding inside your portfolio, it can kind of hurt you quite a bit, and it can be kind of rough, right? Like, if we see over the past, let's go year to date, or actually 1 year return, sorry, is a better example. AQN went down like 44%. So depending on when you invested, obviously your portfolio might be good, it might be bad, but I'd say most people are taking a big hit right now. And this happened independently of the market, right? So that can always happen, and this is why like holding a lot of individual stocks can be tricky. Now, again, depends on the stocks you hold, because like we could go back to Bradley's portfolio and be like, okay, ATD, TD Bank, CNR, like a lot of these are pretty safe conservative stocks. A lot of these I hold in my portfolio, and I would say you probably wouldn't have to risk it too much, but there are a few ones, like Lightspeed, for example, AQN, I guess you could add it in there, that are hold a little bit more risk, and you never know, right? So like Lightspeed, for example, is I think a tech stock. I'm not super familiar with it, but it is one of those small caps, kind of one of those stocks that can actually, it can kind of have, we can see that its growth has kind of been up and down, and depending on when you invested it, right, you could be down quite a bit. Now, again, the important point to note here is that this stock might not recover, but it might also recover and you do really well. And that's, again, you have to look at these stocks, you have to research them, you have to analyze them, decide for yourself, am I okay with taking a big hit? And when you hold a big chunk in your portfolio, like 10% of these individual stocks, if they do well, you do very well. But if you don't do very well, or they don't do very well, it can kind of hurt your portfolio and your overall returns, especially when you have big allocations of them. And I'm not saying he definitely doesn't. It's very conservative, but I'm just saying, like, when you have like 3 or 4 or 5 stocks that represent like 10-ish% of your portfolio, that's a big chunk of your portfolio. So again, you guys just got to understand that, having big holdings of individual stocks can either do really, really well if you're picking good quality stocks, which for the most part, I would say pretty much across the board, Bradley is. But if you pick some of the more riskier ones, there is some risk there. So I just want to always talk about that when it comes to individual stocks, but nonetheless, I think it's pretty good because, right, we could look at stocks like ATD, which is, look at ATD's all-time return. Like, it's up 26, like 26 million. Is that 26 million? I don't know. It's just like absolutely ridiculous percentage, right? Like the past 5 years, it's up 271%, and then all time it's up, I guess it'd be 26,000, right? That's what that percentage number would be. But it's just kind of funny to look at it, right? And in the past 5 years, like to be up 271%, and if you had a large holding of ATD, you'd be killing it, man. But again, that's the risk versus reward. So I like to try to pick stocks that have potential for growth, but I like to kind of cut back a little on the risk if possible. But once again, it's up to you guys to decide where that comes from. The other stock we'll take a quick peek at is Magna International. This is kind of cool because I'm actually learning about different stocks. So this is, I guess, a vehicle manufacturer, I think, what it looks like, or something like that. So Magna International was a brand new stock for me. It's cool to learn about these new stocks by doing these portfolio reviews. But once again, this is a stock that has done pretty well all time, I would say. But again, you guys got to understand that, if stocks do lag behind the markets, you're going to take a bit of a hit. But if they excel up, you're going to do quite well. So again, up to you guys to decide. I'm just kind of pointing that out there. And I just wanted to talk about that because it's an important thing to understand as an investor, especially since this channel is focused on beginners. I wanted to just talk about that really quickly. And because this portfolio is a very traditional portfolio with, growth and dividend stocks, this portfolio is really set up for the long term. So if you're a long-term investor and you're looking to grow that money, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, kind of, I would say like maybe 5 plus 10 years is kind of what you're looking at with a ballpark with this portfolio to really see some significant gain. Now, depending on the markets and how they go, you could definitely make some money in the shorter term, but you're really looking like to get like some good consistent long-term goals with a portfolio like this. And again, this is pretty basic, this is pretty normal, this is kind of what most people want to do. But you notice like he's not using a lot of the covered calls, so he's not really looking for high income right now, and that's perfectly fine. He's looking to build that growth over time, so he's probably not using his dividends. Even for some of the dividend stocks like TD and stuff like that, he's probably going to take those dividends and reinvest them, and that's probably the smart thing to do, right? But maybe he's giving himself the option, you know, down the line, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years from now, if he ever wants to use those dividend income, maybe, you know, those yields will kind of grow over time and they can help compound and grow. So again, I'm not too sure what Bradley's goals are, but he's definitely focused on growth with maybe dipping into those dividends, you know, definitely in the long term inside his portfolio. And to kind of close out this video, I just want to mention really quickly kind of how to compare Bradley's portfolio to my own. It's kind of funny because I think a lot of people probably watching this video are probably expecting me to, you know, like, because there's been a little bit of disagreements among the different types of people on Blossom with different types of stocks and whatnot, and Bradley's definitely been a big part of that. But honestly, like, it really comes down to the fact that, you know what, I'm actually love Bradley's portfolio. My portfolio and his are very similar. The only differences between his and mine is that I'm focused more on ETFs and less individual stocks, and he's like the opposite. He's more focused on individual stocks and less ETFs. The other big thing is I have a much big holding in the US markets, and he's got more in Canadian markets, but we still have a bit of both as well. And probably the third biggest change is that he's got just traditional stocks with some dividend players, right? And then he has some cash and some bond stuff kind of going on there. I don't have any of that stuff, and instead I've kind of taken that stuff and put it into the covered calls instead. So that's probably like the biggest difference. But you know, my holdings on my covered calls are pretty small. Like if you compare my portfolio to his, they're very similar in terms of the objectives, just a little bit different, right? Small little differences here and there. And Bradley's portfolio is very traditional as well. The only difference is he's kind of like focusing a small percentage of portfolio on picking some individual holdings and kind of having some fun with that. So that's a bit of a difference inside his portfolio, but nonetheless, he's got a great portfolio. It's very traditional, it's very simple, it's great, and he's probably going to have some very good success with it. So good job, man. I like your portfolio, and keep going. Alright, so that's it for today's video. So like usual, guys, let me know. I know this was a different video, different type of format. I'm kind of working on how I want to structure these portfolio review videos and kind of add more value to them. I'm just kind of figuring out a format and what not to do. So once again, if you guys have any tips or anything you guys want to see me add, or if you want to kind of, again, I don't know if I want to do longer portfolio videos, if I want to do shorter ones, do multiple ones, just let me know, guys, in the comment section, and I'll try to do my best, and I'll probably do a post in the future to do another round of portfolio reviews. So definitely check out Blossom because I'll be doing it on there. Anyways, guys, take care, have yourself a good day. I'll see you guys later.